Brazen Bull. It was around 600 BC in Sicily, and this man, Phalaris, was thinking of a new way to torture people. He was said to be a cruel tyrant. Some even say he was cannibal and used to eat small suckling kids. He was fond of torturing people and used to take pleasure from their screams. He ran out of torture ideas and asked a sculptor named Perilaus to create something that would amaze him. Perilaus then started working on that job and created a bronze bull. After a few days, he presented the bull to the king. The bull was constructed in such a way that the bull was hollow inside and there was a small door in its belly. The accused would be shoved inside that hollow belly through that small door. Then the door would be closed, and the fire was lit under the bull. The heat would start roasting the body and the victim would scream loudly. A contraption was made in the bull's neck that would turn human scream into the bellowing sound of a bull. The smoke would come out of its nose. The sound and smoke would make it look like an angry bull ready for a fight. The king was happy to hear it. And to test its efficacy, he threw Perilaus himself inside the bull and roasted him. The bull passed the test. The king was insanely overjoyed and started torturing all condemned with the bull. But as we know, what goes around comes around. A few years later, some leader named Telemachus overthrew him from throne and roasted Phalaris in the same brazen bull. Rat torture. This torture method was widely practiced in England from around 5th to 15th century, and few records show it being practiced in Rome and few other cultures too. But at later dates, the London Tower, renowned as a notorious prison and place of execution, was a frequent site for this execution. It was mostly used as a method of extracting confession from the criminals and accused ones. The rats would be kept hungry for a few days before performing this torture. The hunger made the rats aggressive, and the torture would be more brutal. There were two different ways of applying this torture. The first way is to keep the rat in a metal bowl. The bowl is then placed inverted in the belly of the accused. Then the fire was lit at the top of the bowl and heat the chamber. The rat would start burning and try to escape from that place. With no place to go, it would start burrowing a hole in the stomach. Then it would enter the body, slowly ripping and destroying the organs. The unsettling pain would be extreme, and almost all of those would die in agony. Even the wife of King Henry VIII was given this torture. The second method is said to exist at the same time. It was done for treason and crimes against royals. For this method, a pipe would be inserted in the rear end of the accused. A hungry and irritated rat was inserted in the opening of the pipe, and the pipe was sealed. The rat would enter the body from anus and gradually carve its path upwards. It would eat the criminal from inside and would get out from the mouth. There has not been sufficient proof of this method, but some writings suggest it was practiced secretly. A lot of secrets have been buried in this horrific place, I guess. The rack. This gruesome torture method was used in medieval period from the 5th century, but was widespread in Europe during the Inquisition period, from the 12th to the 15th century. It's simply a stretching technique, but the stretch goes beyond the imagination. This was used to extract confession or to gain the information from the enemy members. It consisted of a wooden plank or a few rolling woods where the victim was confined. The hands and legs of the victim would be tied by ropes or chains, and the victim was asked numerous questions. For every silence or false answer, the wheel would be rotated. Every rotation of the wheel would slowly stretch the body, putting pressure on wrists, shoulders, waists, and ankles. The body was stretched to such lengths that the muscles would tear, joints would dislocate, and the victim would suffer the excruciating pain. Few would die in the process, but believe me, those were the lucky ones. If someone would survive the torture, they would be set free. By free, I mean thrown to the woods or a deserted place. Without any working joints and torn muscles, the person would go into paralysis. Some would try to move with intense pain, while others would wait for their deaths with hunger and thirst. In any way, no one would survive more than a few days. If you ask me, that's literally a lengthy way to die. Lingqi. This form of torture is believed to have started from China, Lingqi or Qiandao Wangua. In English translation, death by 1,000 cuts is a method where a criminal accused of treason or rebellion is cut hundreds of times by a small knife or a blade. The accused was first tied to a pole on the street or public area for all to see. To prevent the accused from instant death, a professional executioner was called. The executioner would then start to make small cuts without damaging the vital organs. The cuts are made in such a way that it hurts like hell, but the victim won't die. The wound from hundreds of cuts will traumatize the victim, and the agony of pain would be beyond compare. The process was continued for as long as the criminal was alive. Sometimes it took a few hours and sometimes even a few days for the criminal to die. It was to show what would happen if anyone spoke against the empire or tried to cheat the ruler. The dates and time frame differ among the records, but this torture method supposedly lasted for around 600 years, from 800 to 200 BC. If you have watched my previous video, you may know this guy, Qin Shi Huang. He was among those who supported this torture method. In fact, this guy has been involved in so many things that you will definitely hear his name in future videos as well. The Pear of Anguish. This torture method was used in medieval times mainly by the religious institutions. Starting from the 5th century, it was used against heresy and blasphemy, which were considered the crime of the highest caliber. It got widespread around the 12th century and lasted up to the 16th century. In this torture method, a pear-shaped metal or wooden structure was inserted in mouth or back for men, and you can guess where it would go for women. The pear was made in such a way that the rotation of screw would slowly expand the spike petals. This would cause internal damage to the body and generate intense pain. If the pear would fully open, death was guaranteed. It was like inserting an umbrella from the back and opening it inside the belly. I wonder what God would say if he saw this blasphemy. Gibbeting. Gibbeting was a gruesome public torture and execution method practiced in medieval Europe, Rome, and colonial America. It was punishment for piracy, murder, treason, or rebellion. Gibbet is a cage-like structure made of metal frames. You can think of it as a cage for a bird but multiplied by a bad factor. It came in many shapes, but the size would be no bigger than to fit a person. As the name suggests, the convict would be kept in gibbet and displayed for the public to see. The gibbets would be kept in accessible places like public road, the side of a playground, or near the water source. The convict would cry of hunger and thirst and even ask for help. If anyone tried to free them, those would be hanged in another gibbet next to the convict. So no one would ever dare to do it. Since the body was directly exposed to elements like heat, cold, sun, rain, wind, and everything, it would be extremely painful and hopeless. The victim would die ranging from a few days to a few weeks. After the body was dead, the insects and birds would eat it. It would start to decompose, and the unbreathable odor would be the reminder for others not to cross the line and obey the rules. As per records, some of the dead bodies were just kept like that for as long as 20 years. Well, they would punish you even after the death, I guess. Flaying. This was an insane torture method where a criminal is skinned alive. Practiced in a lot of cultures and regions, it was mainly prevalent in the Near East or Assyria, medieval Europe, and ancient China. This guy was among those who used this torture method. It was used as a punishment for treason, heresy, rebellion, and mostly for war crimes. In this method, the convicted criminal would be tied to a pole or a table. A professional executioner was called so that the victim wouldn't die. The executioner would make a small incision in the neck area with a sharp blade or knife. Then he would start peeling the skin without any delay. It was done so professionally that most of the time, the skin would be in one piece after peeling it from the victim. Keeping bleeding to a minimum and not destroying the vitals, the victim would be kept alive throughout the whole process. The unbearable pain and loud cry of the victim would make even the witness tremble in fear. The victim would later die of psychological agony and wounds rather than the skinning process. This method traces back to almost the 8th century BC and was practiced up to around 200 BC. But few records show that it was recently used in the World War as an action of revenge. Bamboo torture. This torture method is said to have been practiced in China. Not much documentation is found regarding this method, but few records show that it was a slow penetration method of torture. For this, a specific bamboo species, called moso bamboo, was used as the tool of punishment. This bamboo grows more than 3 feet per day. That's more than 1.5 inches per hour. You can literally see it growing. The criminal would be tied around 3 feet high in 2 poles, either horizontally or vertically. Then the bamboo saplings would be planted below the body of the prisoner. In front of his eyes, the bamboo would start growing, and within 24 hours, it would reach the victim's body. With its cone-like top, it would start to pierce the body. The plant completely pierces the body within 10 to 12 hours, if horizontal, and around 24 hours, if vertically positioned criminal. The body was left there as a reminder for others to see. In any case, this process was pain in the ass, literally. Scaphism. This insane torture and execution method was performed by ancient Persians from 550 to 330 BC. It was given to those people who committed the crime of speaking against the Persian Empire. In this torture method, the victim was forcefully fed a lot of milk and honey. By a lot, I mean a lot. Aside from that, a buttload of honey was smeared in his body too. Then he would be tied to a boat or some hollow tree trunk. Then another small boat or some cover was placed in an inverted position and was sealed, keeping just the victim's head, hands, and legs outside. The boat was placed in swamp water and pushed aside. A lot of insects and animals would start feeding on that honey. To make it worse, the overdose of honey and milk would start bloating the stomach, and the victim would be forced to shit inside the boat. With no outlet, the boat would start to swarm with countless bugs and worms. The insects would start eating the body from outside, and worms would enter the body and start eating it from inside. The pain of bloating, insect bites, and internal decay would cause immense pain, and the echoes of the victim's cry would be heard from miles away. The body would gradually rot while the victim is still alive. The suffering would last from a few days to 2 weeks until the victim died. This torture was so inhumane and gross that even I was hesitant to make drawings for this part. But as a fact video, I thought I should include this too. Sawing. This method was prevalent in the Middle Ages in Rome, Europe, China, India, and Persia. This punishment was mainly for those who were believed to be involved in witchcraft or sorcery. In this method, the accused would be hanged upside down with legs and hands tied to a pole. 2 professional executioners would be called with a big saw. They would start to saw the accused from the groin and slowly cut upward towards the head. Since the victim is upside down, the flow of blood towards the head would prevent the victim from instant death, and thus would feel all the pain and agony. The victim would die halfway through, but the insane process would last until the body is completely cut in 2 pieces. The body was then thrown somewhere or given to animals as food. I am glad that none of you were born in those times where making any small mistakes, or just a small act of blasphemy, would lead to insane and gruesome deaths. Few bad torture methods still exist till now but are done in secret and hiding. And that's the story for next time. Thanks for watching till the end. And as always, I love you guys.